Should you eat pork and chicken and farmed fish on a carnivore diet? Well, we'll get the farmed fish out of the way. Generally speaking, no. Farmed fish is usually pretty nasty. Yes, there are some nuances out there regarding particular practices in particular countries, but as a general rule, farmed fish is nasty stuff and should not be consumed. You'd be better off eating wild-caught salmon and wild-caught tuna and all the rest if you can. To my knowledge, tuna's not farmed, at least not yet, but don't put that past anybody to try that. But how about pork and chicken? You see, the problem is the official line generally in the carnivore community is that pork is generally bad, chicken is generally bad, while we also know for a fact that plenty of carnivores eat pork and chicken, in fact, really cheap pork and chicken, grocery store quality pork and chicken, and they have no negative consequences for it. So what's to be done? What are we to believe? I think this is another one of those situations where you have to use your own best judgment. And the argument against pork and chicken goes something like this. Pork and chicken are fed diets that are improper to their particular species. They're not fed a species-appropriate diet, meaning they're fed corn and soy and, often case with pork, leftovers from grocery stores and restaurants and things that are just laden with seed oils. And a lot of that stuff ends up in their fatty tissues, which are then consumed by human beings. For most people, it has no seeming effect that we know of, but for a number of carnivores who are particularly sensitive to these things, they have a bad reaction. So, and then the other problem is that when pork and chicken, not only are their fatty acids loaded with nasty things, they tend to also be not nutrient dense. Ruminant animals, for all the reasons everybody else in this space has talked about, their flesh is dense nutritionally. You can get pretty much everything you need by eating beef and eggs. That's true. But at the same time, you may have noticed the cost of beef isn't going down. Not really. I mean, yes, we are now entering the summer grilling months, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So you should be able to find good deals on hamburger and some steaks and things. And that is a wonderful time to be a carnivore because you can save some money, stock up until we get back into the meat holidays during the fall and winter months. But as a general rule, beef is not really going down in price. And it hurts the pocketbook. And so many are turning towards pork and chicken. I just saw a story from Costco where they are warning people that there are economic indicators coming that we are either in a recession now and have been for a while, or that we are headed towards one based on consumer behavior. And the consumer behavior they cited was a declining sale in Costco beef and increased sales of Costco chicken and Costco pork. And that was what happened during the Great Recession and every recession beforehand that since Costco has been an economic operation. They would know. Their target audience, their target consumer base are middle and upper class consumers. So again, they would know about consumer behavior. And so they're seeing increases in chicken and pork sales. And so the question you're going to be faced with is, in this economic downturn, assuming that's what we're headed into, should you consume pork and chicken? And the easy answer to that question will, of course, be no. You should just suck it up and buy beef. I always found that attitude, though, from people to be not helpful. And so instead, what I would suggest you do is make the decision for yourself. Either you can just downgrade the quality of beef you eat and get mostly ground beef and liver and that kind of thing, and just live off ground beef for, several months until the economy turns around and your personal situation improves. Or you can experiment with a little bit of pork and chicken consumption. Now, I'm going to advise, if you're going to do something as radical as that, radical in our spaces, that you at least try to get better quality pork and chicken if you can. Now, if you can't afford it, maybe start with something leaner. Remember, the core of the argument against pork and chicken, once you get away from the nutrient density in the meat, is that the fatty acids contain compounds you don't want to eat due to what they're fed and the environment they're kept in. So to mitigate that, consider the leaner cuts. Continue getting your fat from beef. You can buy beef tallow at the store. I've gone over this many, many times. You can go to Walmart and other stores, and you can find beef tallow in some of their stores on the oil aisle. You'll need to go down that aisle and check and just use, add that, cook, fry your chicken breast or chicken thighs in the beef tallow. Buffalo Wild Wings famously fries their chicken wings in beef tallow. You can then make up for the bad fat by getting leaner cuts of the chicken or pork and cooking it with tallow. So this would be, chicken breasts and things like that. With pork, it would be pork tenderloin is like the leanest cut. There's almost no fat in it. Some pork chops, including the pork loin cut, the pork loin, which is a little fattier. I know many people want the pork butt, which is for what you make pulled pork with, or the ribs, which are super fatty. But in reality, your leanest cuts are going to be your loin and your tenderloin, far and away. After that's going to be like your sirloin roast. It's going to be very lean as well. And that's usually pretty cheap too, especially this time of year, because it's grilling season. And I don't know why people grill sirloin roasts, but many people do. And there are wonderful recipes out there. Most of them are carnivore friendly, though keto, if you do that, is an option for some of these too. But in general, my thinking on pork and chicken is that it does kind of get a bad rap, but if you're going to eat it, you should eat the leaner stuff if you can, unless it's a treat. Like I have pork ribs once in a while as a treat, and I have no problems with consuming pork. That's never affected me negatively. I've never felt ill. I've never gotten weird rashes or other problems. But again, I usually do carnivore for weight loss and weight maintenance. If you are doing this for metabolic reasons, you may have a very different story about this, so put it in the comments, please, because I don't personally have Hashimoto's or anything like that, so I can't really comment on that per se. But in general, if your ability to keep on a ketogenic or carnivore diet during an economic downturn is based entirely on the cost of beef, and if you don't have a problem with some of these other meats, maybe try them. Now, if you can afford to do so, you can find, usually through Wild Fork Foods, sometimes at Whole Foods and other places, pork and chicken that are from heritage breeds, or at least are pasture raised. It's still a little more expensive, but still can be cheaper than beef. That's one of the things here. So for instance, I still have a little bit of a pig in my freezer that is a heritage breed that I got from a guy at my church. It was cheap, way cheaper than buying beef, and it's delicious, and I know what he fed it. Pretty sweet deal. You can't beat that. And it was fine. It tasted good. In fact, it's pork. The loin on it was amazing. It was one of the best cuts of meat I've ever had. And I'm kind of sad that it's gone. But in general, look for the heritage breeds. There's numerous ones out there. Wild Fork Foods sells Berkshire pork. Berkshire pork is a breed of pig raised that is then marketed towards very high-end restaurants. And the price for Berkshire pork is still way cheaper than beef at Wild Fork Foods. They're not paying me to tell you this. I'm just telling you where you can get it. Wild Fork has a few brick and mortar stores, but mostly they do internet orders for, delivery to your house. I haven't tried ordering during really warm times of the year, but it looks like a lot of North America is going to be in more mild temperatures than usual this summer, so you might be able to get it just fine. But their pork chops are amazing. Their rack of ribs are amazing, and I have used them in the past, and I'd like to use them again. But in general, can you eat chicken and pork on a carnivore diet or on a keto diet safely? Some people say no. Some people have had bad experience trying that, and it hasn't gone well for them. Others say yes. In fact, there are people I have seen in carnivore communities online saying that they eat predominantly chicken and pork and that they do just fine. I'm curious, so let me know in the comments if you are one of those and how long you've been doing that for, if you had any weird health side effects. Because, frankly, people need to save money right now. I understand it. I'm in the same boat that many of you are, trying to save a few bucks. So let me know, chicken and pork, are you pro-chicken and pork? Are you anti-chicken and pork? This is one of those, if you can do it, go, feel free. You should experiment carefully with it. Don't just jump right into the fattiest cuts of pork kind of situations if you're going to do it. Try the leaner stuff first so you can minimize the impact of those fatty acids and cook them with beef tallow or butter to up the fat content from a good fat source. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps a lot too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in today.